mystical creature? An unrecognized species? Of course, there are some who say reptoids, like lizard men, don't come from planet Earth at all. According to Mary Rodwell, an alien abductee counselor, there's only one explanation.
Can you tell us about some of the experience people have had with reptilian beings?
It's quite interesting that there's an enormous number that do have encounters with what they believe are dinosaur, lizard-like reptilian beings, and it's again a global thing. Some of them are really scary because they seem to be very huge.
So can you describe these reptilian creatures that people are seeing?
Well, many of them seem to be about 6 or 7 feet tall, maybe even slightly bigger. Huge frame, snake-like eyes, big snake-like eyes, very overpowering kind of presence, a really sort of strong energy. Many of them, as I say, feel really fearful of them. They may be a grey, green, or they describe sometimes different colours. But it seems to be the eyes that seem to be the most fearful part of these beings as well. Sort of a big sort of snout here. Some of them have something that seems like a crown or skull scales that go down the back, which you know, some see those, some just see them as a flat back. Very much like one would expect a dinosaur that's evolved into a sentient, conscious creature may very well have evolved into.
Is there a typical encounter that people have with these reptilian creatures?
Typical in the sense that it goes with all contact experiences, that they may very well feel, wake up in bed not being unable to move, for example. They'll have a sense of a presence, an overwhelming presence of someone being in the room. And then for others it may be that they end up being on a craft and will see these creatures. They will have a deep understanding of the being that they've seen. They can describe how it felt to them. They would describe different shades of colour or how their eyes looked or the feeling that they got from that being. Hugely detailed, which for me gives it even more credibility as a real experience.
I guess that must be quite unnerving for a lot of these people. How do you help them deal with it?
It's absolutely terrifying for some of them, and they're left with post-traumatic stress disorder because of it. And that's why we know it is a reality, because you don't get those kinds of symptoms from someone who's having a fantasy or, you know, a hallucination. You would not be left with trauma that may last anything from 10, 20 or 30 years.
I've sent Daniel and Natalie to meet a couple of abductees. Rochelle Delia, who claims to heal people using alien powers, and David Sanderkoff, who says he's had as many as 6 close encounters with reptilian-looking aliens.
So David, tell us about your first reptilian creature experience.
My first reptilian creature experience was when I found myself, I suddenly woke up being in an out-of-body state, and then I saw this strange hand come over the bed, and naturally I was quite scared, as you probably would be, so I kind of like told her to leave, not using those words, probably a bit more aggressive, and then I didn't leave, and so I started praying, and then I thought it left, and then it came back and took me out of my body, and then I followed it.
So what makes you so certain that you weren't just dreaming this?
Probably the feelings and how vivid. It was a very solid, very solid experience.
I think the fact that it's a reptilian scares them because it's not what they would expect. And what's interesting for me is that often the people that have see these other beings as well, it isn't something that they would normally want to try and imagine. You know, they're not sci-fi fanatics. They're not people that read, you know, that kind of fiction. They would say, look, I don't believe in this stuff, but I am seeing in front of me one of these beings, you know, and I've seen them come into my room.